In this video, I'm going to be speaking about what is a state of emergency, when it is needed, how it is enacted, and what are your rights during a state of emergency. Stay tuned. A general definition for state of emergency is where there's a situation that exists or is likely to exist in a country which requires the president to make regulations to address that situation within a period of time. Now, I'm using the word situation. I'm going to explain what sort of situation must arise for the president to actually declare a state of emergency. But for now, whenever a state of emergency is declared, it means that a country is more or less in a state of crisis, and we must be mindful of our behavior and our actions because we can't continue to operate as usual. We need to sit, re-examine what's happening so that we could all contribute to bringing the country out of this crisis or emergency. Let's move on to my next part. The law which empowers the president to declare a state of emergency is actually found in the Constitution. If you didn't see that video where I spoke about the Constitution, I'll leave it in the link right up there. You should have a look at it when you have some time. Now, in the Constitution, I like to classify these situations as three broad categories. The first is where there's a welfare situation that may exist. This is where a person or a group of persons may take action or may likely take some actions on a large scale which may interfere with the public's safety and various institutions. It endangers the very existence of the country. That's, for example, being if there's a genocide taking place, if there's terrorism taking place, there's increase in crime, if there's coup, civil unrest. That would be under the first category that I define or classify as a welfare situation. Another being if there's an external situation. For example, if Trinidad and Tobago is to be in war with a foreign state, the Constitution provides for the president to declare a state of emergency. The final situation or category being internal situation. That is where there's natural disasters such as earthquakes, hurricanes, the natural disasters that we may face. Or under this same situation, being internal situation, if there's a pestilence, outbreak of pestilence, or if there's an infectious disease, for example, the coronavirus. Now, Trinidad and Tobago, we declared a state of emergency, but we aren't the only one who declared a state of emergency. In fact, in 2020, there were numerous states in most of the continents around the world who declared a state of emergency. Even this year, in 2021, there are various countries that declared a state of emergency. And our Constitution provides for that in those three general categories, but the state of emergency was declared because of the internal situation that we're experiencing. I'm now going to speak to you about how it's going to be enacted and the time frame. Let's move on. According to the Constitution, there are some steps that must be followed in order for a state of emergency to be enacted. The first is that the president must make a proclamation that a state of emergency exists. Once that proclamation is made, the state of emergency comes into existence, and the president then has to make regulations to address the particular situation that we find ourselves in. Within 3 days of the proclamation, the president has to make a statement to the Speaker of the House of Representatives, specifying the exact reason and the grounds why the declaration of a state of emergency was made. Now, within 15 days of the declaration, the state of emergency, the House of Representatives must meet, and then they would debate the declaration made by the president. The state of emergency remains in existence for a period of 15 days. Now, the House of Representatives, they can then extend the proclamation of the state of emergency for a period of 3 months by a simple majority by the House of Representatives only. Now, the law also says that there could be various extensions within that first 3 months period, but it cannot exceed 3 months initially. There's some views as well that says there's a next occasion after that 3 months is expired where you can have a simple majority by the House of Representatives alone, extending it further to a next 3 months. And then there's the school of thought that says that once that 6 months period has expired, then any further extension, you need to have a 3/5 majority of both houses, the House of Representatives as well as the Senate. There must be 3/5 from each of the houses in order for a further extension. Now, I'm hoping that that was clear as to the period of extension that is normally given and the required majority that is needed, and who could actually allow for an extension of the state of emergency. In addressing the specific internal situation that we find ourselves in, that is the pandemic of the coronavirus, the government has implemented specific regulations to address this pandemic. Now, these regulations, they remain effective except it could be shown that the regulations are not reasonably justifiable to address the issues of the pandemic. Reasonably justifiable more or less means that the law doesn't address the aim and they are not proportionate in actually addressing the pandemic issues. Now, these regulations, they really look at introducing curfews and more or less trying to restrict movements and mobility of persons, asking persons to just stay put for a period of time. And I know that it may be very difficult for many of us, but we are in a state of crisis and we must all do our parts to see how we could reduce and address this emergency. It is a responsibility that you have and that I have. Now, if it is that you believe that your rights are being interfered with during this period, you do have some remedies or some places that you could seek redress. One would be the reviewal committee or tribunal that the Chief Justice has organized. That's one. You could also go to the PCA, Police Complaints Authority, to make any complaints if you believe that an officer is exercising his function outside of his duties and outside of his powers. Or there could also be a constitutional motion that could be made. Now, personally, you guys, when we look at what's happening here in Trinidad and Tobago and around the world, specifically here in Trinidad and Tobago, I am concerned. We must be concerned because we are in a state of emergency. You see where there are variants within our country, the amount and the frequency of infection is increasing. We have more deaths taking place rapidly. We have limited medical resources, that being personal as well as other resources needed for to address the issue of the pandemic. We also have vaccine challenges. There is also the non-compliance of these regulations and measures such as social distancing and washing of hands and wearing of the mask, etc. My encouragement is that during this period of pandemic, we all try to do our part so that we can address this issue together and not just merely focus upon what our rights are and trying to see how you could win the system and get out of or how you could more so break the law. That is not the case. The law is there so that we could all see how we could get through this pandemic together. So my encouragement is, let's obey the law. Let's see how we could get through this together in one piece and alive. So I hope this video was of some use to you. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, my encouragement as well is that you subscribe there, because I'm going to be doing some videos on this regulation, and I'm hoping that it's going to be of some help to you. So you guys have a great week, and we will see you in my next video. Take care.